Story 1. Using my vulnerability against me in an argument, like using something very personal that I shared with you, trusting you would not abuse our connection. Story 2. In murder, there can sometimes be a grounded motive. It does not excuse the action, and I still condemn anyone who would take the life of another, but that does not mean it cannot be understood. For example, I remember a case of a mother murdering her child's murderer. It is still murder on her part, but there is at least some morality, although it does not excuse the action. There is also killing in self-defense. Sexual assault cannot be forgiven or excused. I should also mention false allegations. They can seriously ruin someone's life, and if not proven wrong, that person is severely affected. Story 3. How badly my in-laws abused my significant other. The stories I hear just get more and more horrific. I know it is all true because I have seen the breaks in their masks. It just goes to show you never know what goes on behind closed doors. It just sucks because my significant other is a truly good person. Story 4. Outright betrayal. My wife left me for someone else, hid it from me, and manipulated me into thinking all of our relationship problems were my fault. I had a mental breakdown. I am okay now, but I would not even look at my watch if she asked for the time. Story 5. People who used my generosity and kindness excluded me from their gatherings once they recovered. It is as if they all forgot who supported them during the darkest times of their lives. I will never forgive my parents. Because of them, I was born into a life of betrayal and misery. I hate it here completely and utterly. Story 6. Lying about something that you absolutely had the choice to be honest about, especially if you lied simply to avoid trouble or facing consequences, puts my feelings, respect, and trust on the line. Story 7. My sister abused my mother in her final months and drained my parents' bank accounts after she passed away. I was living out of state and was unaware of what was happening until I discovered that my father, who was suffering from Alzheimer's disease, could not afford his medication. I had to travel across 7 states to find out what was going on. I will never speak to her again. She is no longer my sister. I truly despise her. Story 8. My ex was saying the same thing 9 to 10 times. I understand he did not see me as human, just an object, but I would have never done that to him, no matter what. Therefore, I do not forgive him for that. Story 9. Emotional abuse and manipulation. You understand a person's being so well, which is a beautiful thing, but then use that against them while tearing them apart. It is calculated and 100% intentional. Story 10. People who lie behind your back trying to destroy your character. Do not forgive them. Keep that type of person out of your life. Story 11. A man sent an anonymous letter to the chief executive officer of my employer accusing me and others in my department of falsifying financial records and other baseless accusations. The experience ended positively because after 2 audits returned favorable results instead of problems, I was promoted. Story 12. Using religion as a weapon to oppress people. Interpreting religious texts to murder entire gene pools, identities, and countries, to take over regions, repress truth, and ruin lives, because they interpret a book or two that have been translated many times before they even consider it canon. To amass wealth and political power. I will never forgive those who use religion for their own selfish, bigoted, evil purposes. Religion should be personal and private, used to have hope when all is lost. It should give us strength and unity, but evil people have destroyed that. Narcissistic, power-hungry, selfish, soulless villains. Never forgive those who are wolves in sheep's clothing and exploit the innocent, gullible, kind, and lost. Story 13. Neglect, sexual abuse, physical violence, betrayal. My tutor had badly abused their power over me when I was a child. I no longer want to trust any kind of teachers due to complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Story 14. My date was mean to my baby brother. I tolerated being abused by boyfriends, but I will not stick around when a guy hurts my younger brother. I remember my high school boyfriend bullied my brother on the online game RuneScape. My brother showed me the messages and was very upset about it. The next day, I broke up with him. Story 15. Betrayal of trust. If I tell you something in confidence and you tell other people behind my back, It is an easy way to end a friendship. Story 16. If I tell someone a confidential piece of information and they repeat it, that is the last time we speak. I will say hello and be polite, but we are never speaking again. Story 17. My abusive ex. I would not trust any apology that comes from her. She can return the items she stole if she has any remorse. Story 18. My ex-wife came out as gay and left me for another woman. I supported her, trying to help her get ahead. A few years went by, and I paid most of her living expenses so she could go back to school. She got a job briefly but was then fired. She became dependent on me. When I filed for divorce, which I now realize I should have done sooner, she received half of everything from that time, not when she came out, even though we had both moved on with other partners and she claimed we were in a polyamorous relationship. She then turned my children against me for selling the house and encouraging her to live her own life. Because of this and many other things, I learned not to help people, and I will never forgive her. I would throw a party if she died, though I would feel bad for my children. I will never forgive that person. Story 19. I will forgive it eventually, but it will take a while. I sat there for months, and every time I said I love you, you would say it back even though you did not mean it. Story 20. Saying really mean things in the heat of the moment. My dad used to do this to my mom, and it killed me because he would apologize later, but you really cannot ever take these words back once you say them. I went out and found myself a husband who is very clear-headed, and when he gets mad, he will never say something he doesn't mean or something he cannot take back. I also do not do this. I tend to walk away if I want to say something that is really unhelpful and insulting. We both understand that arguments are something to be solved together, not for somebody to win. I think if our relationship dipped into this territory, I would not be able to go on. Story 21. More like a million things. If you do me wrong, I will never forget and never forgive you. I do not give second chances. Story 22. Being disrespected just once is enough for them to disrespect me, and that is it. A mistake that I made a long time ago and have not been able to forgive myself for. Story 23. Ripping me off for money and never acknowledging your debt. I had a best friend in college who built a gaming PC for me. I spent about $2,500 and gave it to him in cash, but half the parts never showed up and he dropped out of school. I made a promise to myself that I would give him 3 tries to speak up about the money he still owed me. Over the next few years, I saw him twice. He grinned like a maniac and never acknowledged the money he owed me. Years later, after I had moved away, he found me on Facebook and began direct messaging me all the time, looking to reconnect. I eventually mentioned how he owed me several $100s. He shrugged it off and sent me a check. I went to the bank that day, cashed the check, then sent a direct message to him telling him how much of a liar he was. I told him about the time he burned me badly because he was playing chicken and didn't realize I don't back down. I still have a big, nasty scar from that. I told him to get out of my life and never talk to me again. I even mentioned how he was one chance meeting away from me, literally confronting him in real life, but that he had fortunately given me the money just in time. I never spoke to him again after that. No loss in my book. He was already dead to me. But I did get my money first. Story 24. My first serious girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend. I have not seen or talked to either of them since we confronted the situation. He was only interested in the sexual aspect of the relationship. She was good at it and willing to try almost anything. She was always a loner and craved male attention. I am not trying to psychoanalyze her, but this might explain why she was always trying to sexually please others. Since she had no friends, she befriended my friends and enjoyed the social circle she gained, most of whom were men. Story 25. My brother lied to me in 2017 to play Yu-Gi-Oh with me if I stopped annoying him about it. I waited an entire year and he used the same line again and then a year after that. It was utter betrayal, and I will never forgive him. Somehow, I think my situation is a lot less bad than most other people's confessions here. Story 26. There are many things I would never forgive, but the worst of them is child abuse in every form. Physical, psychological, and sexual. My mother never sexually abused me, thankfully, but years of psychological torment and physical abuse completely destroyed who I was as a person. My dreams, my motivations, and my inner fire were completely snuffed out at the age of 10. Story 27. A corrupt official getting off scot-free because they can just pay a fine and receive a light punishment. Story 28. Someone hurt my cat's son. He is 18, and I have prioritized him as I would if I had a child. People have visited and shoved him off the couch when he was very little. They were never invited back. Still, when I see them out, I hope they trip and fall on the hot pavement. He is my everything, and I do not take kindly to him being treated like an animal. Story 29. My wife left me 6 months after our wedding because she met her true soulmate at her new workplace. But that is not the problem. The problem is that she lied for months about it to protect me, and I am pretty sure she had a lot of doubts before the wedding. It feels like she stole this unique moment from me. Story 30. My husband was a narcissist and loved to hear his own voice. He made up stories and told them to my friends and anyone else in the room. He would tell anyone who would listen about my private medical problems. I flat out told him that I would never forgive him. We were married for more than 40 years, and it was all a lie. Karma intervened, and he died a month ago. I did not go to his funeral as he had wasted enough of my time. Story 31. I think with me it just takes time. What I struggle with is the pain that recurs when I think of the situation. Story 32. Rape. This is for everyone. I do not care if the survivor is a man, woman, or child. Everyone who has suffered from rape deserves the same level of care. Story 33. I had a friend with whom I was in a platonic relationship. I never saw him that way. He was somewhat narcissistic and believed everybody was in love with him. He then introduced me to his best friend, who supposedly developed feelings for me. This friend had a problem with the situation and spoke negatively about my character, accusing me of playing both of them without committing. At first, he was pretty chill, but I cut contact with him. Speaking ill of someone's character is something I would never forgive, whether done behind their back or for fun. Story 34. There is something I will never be able to forgive. It is stuck in my heart and mind. I do not know why I cannot talk about it. Perhaps because it came from the person who was closest to me. Story 35. Well, let's see. The first thing was family stealing money. The second was family spreading my business all over the internet. The third was a family member keeping my kids from me. Yes, I am pretty much done with family. Story 36. My dad and mom were listening to their friend who had his own company, saying things about my line of work, claiming my education was wasted and he could do my work just as well. I develop websites, but not just develop. I create their online presence and make their brand visible with proper groundwork and technical search engine optimization. This was around 2013, and Wix and page builders started to emerge. Maybe it's not the biggest deal, but knowing my parents sided with this person who knew nothing about my line of work and took his side hurts. This was a long time ago, and I have proven him wrong hundreds of times. My mom even complained about never being able to get a job that pays as well as mine. Story 37. When my dad and his former partner separated, she completely trashed his house before leaving. I spent weeks helping my dad clean up after her. I was furious and still am furious at her for that. Story 38. My eldest brother. My therapist has determined that his redemption is a lost cause for us to work through. Story 39. Physical cheating messages still hurt, but I could probably get past that. However, I could never forgive my husband if he was intimate with someone else. Story 40. When someone makes you feel like you are too much for simply being yourself, I will never forgive them for making me shrink just to fit into their comfort zone. That version of me does not exist anymore. Story 41. It depends on the person. My brother, there is not much he could do to me that I could not forgive. I think it would have to be doing something horrible to someone else. I cannot forgive for someone else. It would definitely test the relationship. Story 42. Are you using my appearance in an argument? Example, that's why you have that scar on your lip. I have anxiety, and I bite my lips, especially the middle of the top one, leaving a small scar. Story 43. Not inviting me to your wedding, if you happen to be a family member or a supposed close friend, without giving any notice is hurtful. It is disappointing when you hear from third persons or through social media posts that people you consider close friends had a wedding. I cut one cousin out of my life and ended a friendship, while almost ending another. The latter was excused because it happened during COVID-19 when larger wedding gatherings were prohibited. But seriously, if you are family or consider yourself a close friend and you do not invite me to your wedding, you better have a good explanation, and the cost should be sufficient or else you are out of my life. Story 44. I would not say never forgive, but do not mess with my family, especially my children. There are two people on my list because of what they did to my son and his fiancée while he was on a deployment halfway around the world. Story 45. Supporters of former President Donald Trump with no military or government experience, who vote against their openly mixed-race, disabled, veteran, or LGBTQ relatives, who say things like how Black Lives Matter was a group of violent terrorists, but consider January 6th Capitol rioters to be patriots. I am quite sure that now they believe their source, Fox News, that there is a real need for the National Guard. However, I cut off contact with my Trump-supporting family and former friends, and I have acquaintances in Los Angeles who tell me the city is not, in fact, on fire. The violence is minimal. If police were not doing anything about the protests, it was because they felt no need. I read Fox News from time to time just to understand where Trump supporters are coming from, but they absolutely refuse to look at even slightly left-leaning or neutral news. Naivety is something that happens to you because you do not know there is more knowledge out there. I used to be that way. I learned better. Ignorance is when you know there is more knowledge out there and purposely refuse to hear it, usually because you do not want to hear anything that goes against your prejudice. Story 46. Original Sin. You are all wrong because a woman decided to learn something. That makes sense, right? Story 47. Infidelity. If you want me out of your life, tell me. I will go with no drama. Just do not expect me to forgive you when you could have communicated. Grow up. Take accountability. Communicate. Story 48. The United States military attempted to murder my late maternal grandmother, who was a Hiroshima survivor. The organization would definitely do the same thing again. There is no possible way to redeem the United States military. Therefore, it should not exist. Story 49. I agree with most of what others said about extreme situations, but I'll give some personal examples that aren't so extreme. Randomly ghosting or blocking me, posting screenshots of what I said to someone unrelated to you which caused me to lose friends and acquaintances, calling who you thought was my supervisor about something I said that had nothing to do with you or my job. Fortunately, no one at work mentioned it to me, and I only found out because someone said they made the call to harass me. Constantly making fun of how I speak. Borrowing or stealing at least a couple $100 from me and never returning it. Especially if we were romantic partners. Story 50. I will never forgive my mother for seeing that I was struggling and choosing not to talk to me because she did not know what to say. There are a lot of unforgivable issues in my family, but this one is the foundation underlying the rest. Story 51. My mother-in-law broke up with her boyfriend because he cheated on her. My wife and I lived with her at the time and found out at 1:30 a.m. when we heard a loud thud and her screaming my wife's name. I had always known he was untrustworthy and had my suspicions. For one, he was already married. My mother-in-law knew, and allegedly it was an open relationship because he had a clause in one of his large companies stating that if he divorced his wife, he would have to give up his ownership share. Then I found out she was actually in a relationship with this man for 13 to 15 years while she was married to her ex. Before I discovered all of this, I spent several days changing every lock and making sure she felt safe. We found out she was cheating on her ex with this man, and that she went behind his back as well. She swore on my first son's life that she would never get back with him, while my wife and I watched her slowly rebuild the relationship. 3 years later, they are back together. We moved out as soon as we could, although it took longer than we would have liked. I have told my wife exactly this. If your mom were to lie and attempt to manipulate us again, she is dead to me. For me, cheating is unforgivable, especially when you swear to spend your life with that person. My mother-in-law involving my firstborn in the matter and lying absolutely destroyed any last hope of faith and trust one had in her. Story 52. Breaking Trust. Trust is like a vase. If you break it, you can glue it together, but there will still be cracks. Story 53. Cheating and lying. Also, someone using things I say against me, no matter how kind I am, will not be forgotten. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.